Well, welcome everyone. This is Tim McDonald coming to you with another very special episode of Advocacy at Work. Today, I am joined by somebody I met several years ago out at the Cologuard Classic in Tucson, Arizona, a colorectal cancer advocacy event and golf tournament for the Champions Tour in Tucson, sponsored by Exact Science and Cologuard, the maker of Cologuard. And today, I am even better friends with her, and I am so honored to have her here with me today. Liz Healy, how are you doing today?
Well, Tim, I'm honored to be with you today, and I'm doing okay. I'm
All
hanging
right.
in there.
Well,
And
that's good to hear. And I know for people who know Liz, you might be listening to her voice going, it doesn't sound like Liz, but Liz, tell us what's happening with you, a little bit about
sure,
you, your story, where you're at now. I think that kind of helps put everything in perspective, is why your voice is like this.
of course. Since February of 2022, I've been in the fight of my life against stage 4 colorectal cancer and stage 2 kidney cancer. I was skiing in Vermont and got hit on a mountain by an out of control skier and broke my tailbone, where the imaging discovered kidney cancer. I went to 4 different surgeons and doctors in the New York City area. The first 3 said just take that kidney tumor out. The fourth one was Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, who said something else was going on because I had liver lesions. And they discovered then that I had stage 4 colorectal cancer that had spread to my liver and lymph nodes at the time. Not sure lived long after that. I was in a 10-hour emergency surgery, resecting my colon, my liver, and placing the hepatic arterial infusion pump. Since then, I've had multiple surgeries, treatments, chemos, and I've been on an immunotherapy trial in Boston. I've had radiation, and the cancer is currently all over my lungs, in my bones, in my brain, in my liver, lymph nodes, glands, etc. Unfortunately, I'm at a point that we knew could happen along this journey in stage 4, um, but we've run out of options. So I'm you know, still looking for a Hail Mary of a trial, etc. But in terms of treatment of the bone cancer and brain cancers, there's nothing that's going to systemically stop it. So we are doing radiation to relieve pain and just preparing for this next chapter. And grateful to have even a little bit of headlights that it may be coming soon. Given the cancer is in my brain, every day is a gift. I don't know tomorrow how it will impact or be inflamed or affect things, and if I could have a seizure, etc. So, trying to make the best of each day, and happy to be here to share my story, um, especially as it relates to advocacy, as something that has helped me get through the last couple of years and defy odds. What I was told in the beginning, I probably had a 7% chance of living 5 years, and I've been doing a pretty good chance of beating that. Um,
No, you are absolutely the definition of what we hear in the colorectal cancer world as a fighter, warrior, an advocate, more than just about anybody I know, Liz. And I just want to let people know that you and I have been kind of texting back and forth for a few days now, understanding that we might or might not have the opportunity to record this. So I just want to let you know how grateful I am that you are here with us today to do this with me. It just means
Thank
the
you.
world to me. So before
And
we,
and Tim, just as it relates to my voice, my brain has swelling on one side. It's causing kind of a paralysis on the left side. So my vocal cords are paralyzed, and it is not my booming, loud Irish woman voice that I like to operate with. But I'll do my best, and bear with me.
No, you're coming in loud and clear on this end. So, but I just know it's not what I'm used to hearing. So I knew some other people would probably be saying the same thing. But kind of set the table because I always like asking this question early so that we don't get too far down the rabbit hole with talking about advocacy. How would you define advocacy, Liz?
That's a great question, Tim. Um, Advocacy, I think, has many components, especially as it relates to the life of a patient. I think number one, you have to be your own health advocate for your own medical journey, whatever that may be, whether that's cancer, etc. Having been a caretaker for my parents and elderly relatives, and advocating for them and the actual patient journey, and then as a patient myself over the last 3.5 years, it is essential that you are your own best advocate. You get as smart as possible on whatever disease you're facing, etc. And then secondly, the other way I would view the advocacy is for me turning pain into purpose, and that is raising awareness about this disease, which I was hit skiing when I was 45, and colorectal cancer screenings, etc., were nowhere on my radar. So I believe as part of my journey that happened for a reason, and part of that reason is I am here to further raise awareness, empower people with information on symptoms and knowing their family history, sharing my story, which prior to this journey, I was a very private person, not on social media, etc. But I've seen the potential to save at least one life, one family from going through this journey by telling a little bit of my story and our family's journey and how we've been fighting for 3.5 years. And if sharing and advocating for awareness, research funding, because I, my life depends on a cure for this cancer. And unfortunately, our science is not caught up with how this cancer has evolved, and we need more funding to find new cures. And so it's been a great way for me to make lemonade out of lemons and add some oomph to my journey to add advocacy into my own battle um, plan. And that, that hasn't always been easy. It was not something that I would say I started from the beginning of this journey. I think in the first 6 to 9 months of my journey with stage 4 colorectal cancer, I was kind of in that shock and awe phase, just surviving, trying to figure out what does this mean? Am I going to live? I have children, I have grandchildren. Like, what does this mean to my life? I'm going to be able to work. Am I going to be able to do the things I want to do? How much time do I really have? And, I'm not knowing a huge amount about cancer, but knowing stage 4 is always a kind of a bad word. Um, the beginning of my journey was kind of survival, getting through the first 6 months of Folfox, dealing with the hepatic arterial infusion pump, and mental, physical, emotional journey that involved. It was through an organization, Colontown, and also through the Cologuard Classic, which Colontown invited me to attend, that I think I started to learn the most about this mission of advocacy, which I saw the power of by meeting people and talking to them about their journeys, and it helped me face my journey and give me hope. I met people that had been fighting it for 10 years, which, when you initially said you have this 5 year, 7% chance of living, you don't have a lot of hope. And you also learned from them what they were doing in terms of, going after other treatments, clinical trials, and how they were, taking care of their own physical, mental, and emotional health. And I found for me, movement has been part of my medicine in this journey, and was able to weave that into my advocacy work of doing doing athletic events, which the sports have been a part of my life all my life. So doing marathons, half marathons, climbing mountains, etc., to raise money for colorectal cancer awareness and research funding, and also spread awareness by those campaigns.
That is absolutely amazing. And it's kind of a little shocking to me for is, I'm not going to say that we know each other overly well, but we know each other pretty well in the advocacy space, in the colorectal cancer space. To think that I think that that was the day that you got invited that you just mentioned to by Colontown out to the Cologuard Classic that we
Mhm.
met that weekend. And
Yeah.
for you to say you weren't that involved before that was like almost like my jaw dropped, you know? It was like I'm like because if I look at you now, it's like you have been nonstop ever since. So what was that like after you because I know you mentioned when you were talking about being a caregiver for your parents,
Mhm.
you knew how to advocate for them, so you knew kind of how to turn that into advocating for yourself as a patient. But then when we look at the other avenue of advocacy, as far as creating awareness and helping in research studies and everything, you really took that when you got that invitation to Cologuard. So what happened there? What was kind of that catalyst, and where has that taken you since then?
Sure. I would say that first Cologuard Classic, I was feeling pretty, and I just kind of wrapped up 6 months of Fox, and I was feeling honestly pretty kind of alone in the journey, kind of spit out into the world, trying to figure out, okay, waiting to hear if I was going to be doing another kind of treatment or not based on scans, living with a lot of scan anxiety. And I was given the opportunity by Colontown to go to the Cologuard Classic. And I looked at it as, wow, that looks like it's bringing together a community of people that are facing the same journey as my family. I also, as an athlete, was so intrigued with being having access to professional athletes, people that get paid to do what they're passionate about. And so I had been paired with Tim Petrovic, one of the PGA Champion Tour pros from Connecticut originally. And so I went out there, and unfortunately, I was pretty sick during the week. I only got out there for about 48 hours, but I went out there and had an amazing experience with Tim Petrovic and his team. And they really put some kind of fight and pep into my step as we got to know each other. Over those 2 days, I walked the 18 holes, I think on Saturday and Sunday with him, and had a pretty unique up close experience to professional golf. And then the community building events that the actual Cold Guard Classic does, and where I got to meet, probably not too many people at that point because you know how crazy it can be. But I was only there 48 hours, and I met as many people as I could and tried to connect. And I met a few, you know, pretty tight connections that ended up making a difference, in my overall journey in terms of friendships and supporters. But that was kind of the first colorectal cancer advocacy community building event that I officially attended besides the Colontown EPL training in the prior August, I believe. And it really opened my eyes meeting people from all the different organizations that are on this journey to end colorectal cancer, from Fight CRC to the Colorectal Cancer Alliance to Colontown to any other number of amazing organizations that are out there, along with the team from Exact Sciences and Brian Guthiel and his team. And I, as a executive in IBM and then Deloitte prior, was so intrigued with a corporation that takes the time and money to invest in helping cancer patients. That really kind of struck my heart and was impressed the heck out of me of how much they did and how well they did it. And that first Cologuard Classic, attending the Blue Wave Walk, I was in tears but I was also so like grateful to this organization that would take the time to think about patients like this and to do things to hopefully make their journeys better and make their lives better.
And and I know because I've seen some of the stuff you've gotten involved with, but where has that kind of taken you since that weekend, that first weekend at the Cologuard Classic? Because I know you've done a lot of stuff.
Hmm. Um, I mean, it definitely took me on a couple of different paths, as I mentioned here earlier. Movement as medicine, to raise money and funding for organizations that have supported me in this journey. So since for the last 4 years, I've been doing the New York City Marathon for Fred's team for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center to raise money for colorectal cancer research, and I've been doing those all while on treatment. And I walk it, and this year we had a team of 20 people whose lives have been touched by colorectal cancer. Team Check Your Colon. Everyone from stage 4 patients to caregivers to people that have lost either their spouse or a parent to colorectal cancer, um, to friends and family of mine. And we had 20 people this year, and we are targeting to have 40 runners next year for the New York City Marathon. So I would say one path was just movement as medicine. I did New York City half marathon for the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. I've done climb for a cure with Fight CRC, and all these events. I think for me personally, helped me do something that a lot of medical patients don't have, and that's control in their life of a training schedule, way they're going to approach the race, and also, um, sorry, forgot the second point, um, control, and also they fill my fight tank. To be honest with you, selfishly, when I do the New York City Marathon, it's not easy, but I tell you, I would get a good 3 to 6 month runner's high from that. That just fills my fight tank to take on whatever this disease is hitting me with. And that goes true for any kind of physical or movement event. And it's not always easy. What I've said is, to my donors is I may go out to a mile, I may do 5, may do 26.2. But whatever it is, it's a win given what our family is facing. And this year to do it with 20 amazing friends and family teammates that um, was just fantastic. Um, Second kind of point that I want to make as it relates to advocacy is, you know, taking time to share your story, curate your story can really make a difference in someone's lives. And whether that's just to simply getting someone to get screened that was scared of it or didn't have time for it. At that when I was 45, I can tell you I probably would not have prioritized the colonoscopy because I was global executive traveling around the world, mom, taking care of elderly relatives. I was not a big believer in medical checkups. I went to a doctor when I got sick every 2 years for bronchitis, etc., to get my antibiotics from being on too many planes, trains, and automobiles. And if just sharing a little bit of my story can change someone whose mindset is like me, who said, "Oh, I feel okay. I don't need to go to a doctor." That is gives something that I can do to save one life and one family from going through this. Thirdly, using my voice to raise money in for research and talk about how important it is that we need to do more research on this disease and find new cures. Um, I had the opportunity, and I have to do a clinical trial at Mass Gen this year. Um, for my situation, because I have two different kinds of cancer, completely different primary tumors, it is very difficult to get on any kind of clinical trial. So I would say 95% of the trials that I've been researching since I was kind of given the heads up by other advocates, don't wait till you're out of treatment options to look for a trial. look for it now, especially if you're stage 4. And that's one thing I would advise anyone in a cancer journey. If you're stage 4, from the beginning, start to get smart on the clinical trial process because it is not easy. It is complicated. And the more you know, the more your success you could potentially have in saving your life. And it's not something, as I thought of prior to having cancer, that, you try all the different kinds of chemo. And if they fail, then you look for a clinical trial. I think my advice to anyone would be is you have to start as soon as you're able to and to get smart on it. So I had the opportunity to do this clinical trial that's showing very promising results for some patients. I was incredibly grateful to be on it and to have the opportunity. And I did it for twofold. One is, yes, for sure, potentially could save my life, but knowing whether it worked or it didn't, hopefully the knowledge gained from my journey on it could be used to save others' lives, whether that's to tweak it or to learn more about how it works, to target better audiences, etc. And that was a great experience with the team up in Mass Gen. However, unfortunately, the treatment did not deliver the results that we needed for me personally. Um, and fourthly, in terms of advocacy, I have grew up going to a high school called the Ursuline School in Nurse New York. And the motto of the school is Servium. I will serve and I will give back to the world, to make it a better place. It's an all girls Catholic school that's very near and dear to my heart. And in my journey in life, I went from Ursuline to Cornell University, where I was the captain of the women's crew team. And then I joined Deloitte and went into management consulting for a number of years and was also at IBM in management consulting and global sales in a number of different roles. And one thing I always tried to balance in life is a way to give back and or serve others. And I was able to do that by serving on a number of nonprofit boards and volunteering time. However, I always struggled. If you talk to my mentors and my bosses, I always struggled with fully jumping into a vocation of service as a career. But I also saw the power of working for major corporations that could influence and fund change in this world. So it was always kind of like, you know, trying to find those paths and also do that in my corporate work in terms of the service and volunteer and opportunities that those corporations had to give back to the world and make it a better place. A gift that I found with stage 4 cancer was, I'd worked very, very hard to make sure I and my family were protected should something catastrophic like this happen to me. And so had the opportunity to not have to work while, you know, going through treatment, etc., and had everything in place that, because of how it was affecting my abilities mentally, physically, etc., I could not execute the global job that I had when I was diagnosed. And that not having to balance the work, go crazy work schedule allowed me to put energy into service and advocacy. Is if you advocacy is a path of service and giving back to the world in a way. And it's a beautiful gift that cancer has given me. I have to say, I look at it as, because it's something that I always wanted more in my life, and it only took a little bit of stage 4 cancer to get to it. Um, but it's made me prioritize that in a way. It's like, every day I look at, yeah, I'm gonna have good days and bad. Some days I can't move, can't get off the couch, etc. But if I have a good day and I can do something to help one of these organizations we talked about earlier that has truly helped my family in this journey, whether that's the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Colontown, Fight CRC, the medical institutions that are helping me, or Skyhope, a medical flight organization that I recently joined the board of, that helps medical patients fly to treatment and appointments. If I can put my what energy and mind I have into helping these organizations, it's truly been a gift. And right now, in terms of organizations where I and my family are involved with, I'm a patient advisor with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. Our family, my husband Jimmy and my youngest daughter Ella, are ambassadors for Fight CRC. I'm a team captain for Fred's team and Cycle for Survival for Memorials Sloan Kettering. I'm the board of Skyhope Angel Flight Organization, and I'm a fundraiser for a few other organizations that are do a particularly good job at taking care of children of patients with terminal cancer, and that is Camp Kesem and Inheritance of Hope.
Wow. You have just done so much, Liz. And this is probably one of the most difficult questions I'm going to ask, as
Sure.
we kind of wrap up here. But you mentioned, you haven't given up, but you also know that there's no other options out there for you right now, that
Mm-hmm.
you found.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you going as you kind of reach the end here of your treatment and the disease is taking over more of your body? Because I know that it can be really easy just to say, yeah, I've done enough. I'm just going to be
Mm-hmm.
with my family. You're taking time to be here with me right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing all this other work out in the world still. I still see you online all the time posting stuff about these organizations that you just listed. So what is it that keeps you going right now?
Right now, for sure, my family and making the most of these beautiful time. But at the same time, it fuels me to keep going right now to advocate. I was speaking with the Project Cure uh, summit earlier this week, and those are the top doctors and scientists that I believe are going to find the next cure for the colorectal cancer from the Project Cure being sponsored by the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, and we need that. And what fuels that for me is my children and my grandchildren. This disease is going to devastate their generations if we don't get a hold of it quickly, and that is a big fuel to me keeping going, even in this time where I could just say, you know what, I'm prepared to die, or I could fight like hell to live and save other lives, and also fuel my own, fire to keep going. Um, to me, that's living. And even in the process of preparing for the next chapter, I'm gonna live the way that I've lived for the last 3.5 years, and that's living, loving hard, getting my butt on a plane to go see the people I love and go be with the people I want to love, doing things that I've always wanted to do. I've traveled around the world, went to the Olympics, went to Henley Royal Regatta, things that have been on my bucket list for years, and did adventures with my family. Advocating like hell, because if we don't do this, it's who's going to do this for other patients, for other families in the future, and just one voice can make a big difference in whether saving one life or hundreds of lives. And I would say one thing our family has found kind of a daily boost from is my husband calls it word like the Johnny Appleseed of blue ribbons and screening cards. So every day, our family tries to hand out at least one blue ribbon and one screening card to raise awareness wherever we may be. And that may be on an airplane, that may be a hotel, that might be in a restaurant, that may be just sitting in a cafe, whatever it may be. We do it, we share with people we know and share with people that we don't know. And I have a funny story. Like recently, I was up in that clinical trial in Boston and was staying at a hotel right next to Mass Gen for a number of weeks and got to know the front desk staff. And of course, all of them have blue ribbons and greeting cards from the beginning. And a dear friend of mine was actually up there for business recently, and she sent me a picture with the front desk guy at that hotel, and she said, "Look, this guy's got a blue ribbon." And I said, "Erin, I gave him that blue ribbon." That's Darius at the front desk. Um, and so it comes full circle that and he wears that every day since I gave it to him and told him my story and raises awareness, you know, in that hotel and that with customers. And we view like just one little ribbon could make someone get a colonoscopy or make them remember to get a colonoscopy and remember to tell other people my story. Because right now I say, a lot of people are like, "What can I do for you?" And number one, I tell anyone that says that, um, well, first of all, flowers and cookies are exploding in my home right now. It's wonderful. But the number one thing people can do for me is get screened, tell all their people that they love, friends and family, to get screened and tell them the symptoms and tell them to know their family history, and then support organizations that I've talked about earlier in our discussion that have truly touched the lives of our family, including Exact Sciences and their scholarships for Cologuard and the other organizations that I've talked about.
That's amazing. So just to wrap up here, Liz, really quick,
Sure.
because I know you need to get going. But just tell me, what's one thing that you want other patients, people impacted by, disease, that are going through a horrible time to know or to take away with your advocacy efforts?
I would say one thing to know about getting involved in advocacy is it makes sure that you know that you're not alone in this journey. And I believe facing any challenge, any battle with a team behind you, all the people involved in these organizations are wonderful people that will have your back and you will not feel alone. And that feeling is a great feeling when you're going through something so horrible. And people that just get you, they get your language. You may have the best caregiver, you must best family, friends in the world surrounding by you, but then they will do their best to understand your journey. But unless they've been, walked a few steps in that journey themselves, it can be hard to relate exactly what's going through your mind mentally, physically, and emotionally. And getting involved with advocacy really honed into me from the beginning with Colontown that I was not alone. There were people I could reach out to, and I've had a couple of angels in my journey that have just been there since the beginning. We call, we text, you know, after I share the results with my husband, I'll call and talk to them about it and get their view. And it's just been something that has been so powerful in getting me through the the bad days and the good days with this disease. And so I can't encourage people enough to check out these organizations and check out ways to engage. One event that I love is with Fight CRC call on Congress, going to DC with a bunch of advocates to advocate